Hi, I'm Eric from Stinger, and today we've got this Silverado in the bay so I can show you how easy it is to upgrade your vehicle with the Horizon 12. Thanks to our plug-and-play kit, installation is super easy and adds this massive 12.8-inch HD touchscreen display that's IP65 rated. The Horizon 12 is also packed with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto and tons of other amazing features. So let's get started on the install so I can show you how easily you can upgrade your truck with the Horizon 12.
The tools we're going to use on today's installation are a drill with a Phillips bit, a 7mm driver, a ratchet with a 10mm socket, a finger ratchet with a T15 Torx, a pick tool, electrical tape, a long zip tie, cutters, and a pry tool. Begin by carefully using a nylon pry tool to pry around the edge of the trim panel surrounding the radio and the climate controls, working your way along the edge, releasing the clips as you go. Then disconnect these small harnesses on the bottom of the panel. Now remove the 4 7mm screws around the outside of the display. Now we can take the radio display panel out by pulling it toward the rear of the vehicle, releasing the mounting clips. Then disconnect the 2 harnesses on the back of the display. Press in on the latch tabs and pull the connectors free. Now remove the gray connector from the climate control panel. Next, we can remove the 2 7mm bolts securing the optical drive into the dash. Pull it out and unplug the harnesses on the rear. Then remove the drive from the vehicle. Now we can unplug all the connectors in the module at the top of the dash. There's a latch tab at the top. If you push it up, it allows you to pull the module out, making it easier to disconnect the antenna connector. Now we can remove this module from the vehicle. Now on the passenger side of the vehicle, open both glove boxes. This will give us access to the T15 Torx screws that we need to remove. There are 4 that are accessible from this location. Then if we close the glove box, we can remove the lower Torx screws. With all the screws removed, we can simply pull the lower glove box toward the rear of the vehicle to remove it. Now we can remove the upper glove box in the same way. This gives us access to the gray connector located here, behind this metal bar inside the dash. Reaching up behind the metal bar, we can feel the HMI module. We want to unplug the gray 12-pin harness. This is the camera retention harness. Plug the gray connector from the vehicle's HMI module into the harness. Then route the yellow RCA connector through the opening behind the dash to the radio opening. Now we want to remove this entire grab handle. First, we need to remove the small plastic covers using a nylon pry tool under the edge. Now we can remove the 2 10mm bolts. Then by pulling on the grab handle, we can remove the entire A-pillar trim panel. Now we're going to mount our GPS antenna here on the corner of the dash. Using electrical tape, secure the blue GPS antenna connector to a long zip tie. This will help with routing it through the dash. Pass the zip tie down along the right side of the dash by the A-pillar toward the glove box opening and pull out all the slack. Next, route it behind the dash to the radio opening. Next, we want to remove the 2 screws at the bottom of the panel below the steering column. Now we can pull this whole panel toward the rear of the vehicle to release it. We want to remove the steering wheel tilt lever by pulling it straight out toward the driver's side door. You may need to use a pry tool to help pry it outward. Next, separate the 2 halves of the steering column cover so that we can remove the lower half. This gives us access to the black 10-pin connector below the steering wheel. Press the latch tab up, then pull the connector out to disconnect it. This is our T-harness we're going to connect here under the steering column. Plug the connector into the back of our T-harness. If we bend the connector a little bit toward the wires, this will make it easier when plugging the connector back in. Now with the latch tab down, slide this connector into the OEM location. It should click into place when fully inserted. Use one of the supplied zip ties to secure the T-harness to the OEM wiring under the steering column. Use electrical tape to attach the single connector to a long zip tie and pass it through the opening behind the dash to the radio opening. Now we can reassemble the two halves of the steering column. Begin by aligning the right side first, as there are more things to align on that side of the steering wheel. Bringing the lower half up around the key cylinder and aligning the two pieces, then finally snapping them together. Now we can reinstall the tilt lock lever by simply snapping it back into position. Pull the lever to ensure the tilt function operates properly. This is our external speaker, which we can mount here under the dash. Using some of the supplied zip ties, pass one through the hole in the mounting bracket, then secure the speaker to the mounting bracket inside the dash. The external speaker is only needed if we're going to be connecting external aftermarket amplifiers to the radio's RCA outputs. Vehicles with BOSE or no amplifier, this external speaker does not need to be installed. Then, using a long zip tie, pass the speaker connection plug behind the dash to the radio opening. Then pull up all the cables slack. Now we can reinstall the plastic trim panel below the steering column by lining up the clips and pressing it forward to snap it into position. Then reinstall the two torque screws at the bottom of this panel. Now we'll remove the storage compartment at the bottom of the dash. The two T15 torque screws at the bottom of the pocket are close to the floor of the truck, so you need to use a short tool to unscrew them, like a finger ratchet spinner or a ratchet with a T15 Torx bit. Then open the storage pocket and remove the single Torx screw at the top. Now we can remove the storage compartment by pulling it toward the rear of the truck. Remove the connector from the back of the 12-volt power outlet by pressing on the tab and pulling it free. Using a pick tool, press the latch tab on the left side of the small connectors. Push the latch tab toward the wires and pull the harness to remove them.
Well, that's it for the vehicle disassembly. We'll head over to the bench and do some work there.
If we flip this assembly over, on the back of the power outlet we can see two black plastic tabs. Using a pry tool, pull these black plastic tabs away from the metal outlet sleeve while pushing on the back of the connector. This will allow us to slide the metal sleeve out of the plastic. Then using a pick tool to press the plastic tabs on the plastic piece, we can remove it from the large panel in a similar fashion. Our USB cable includes an optional cover. If you want to use the waterproof cover, align the ring and cover like this to understand the orientation. Then slide both the cables through the ring. Slide the ring all the way onto the USB outlet so that the cover is at the very end. Now we can pass both USB cables through the front of the storage compartment panel. We have two locking nuts. One is a regular nut, one has a flange. We're going to install the one with the flange first. Passing the flange over the cables, fully thread the nut onto the back of the USB port. When almost fully threaded, turn the panel over so you can verify the orientation of the USB outlets and the waterproof cover. Once you've confirmed you have the orientation correct, finish tightening the nut to lock everything into position. Then thread on the second nut over the USB cables and tighten it completely. This piece is now ready for the vehicle, so we can set it aside for now. Setting down a towel on your workbench will create a soft surface, where we can set the factory radio display face down so we can remove the climate control panel. Using a flathead screwdriver or a pick tool, pull the clips away from the climate control panel, working your way around the outside of the panel until you release all the clips. Locate the display trim panel. Set it face down on a soft cloth. Now align the climate control panel with the display trim panel and slide it into position until the clips engage. This panel is now ready for the vehicle, so we can set it aside for now. Now let's assemble the vehicle harness. Locate the main vehicle harness and the small adapter harness. Now we're going to make the connections between the two harnesses by making the connections between the 8-pin harness, the 2-pin harness, and the 14-pin harness. This is our radio replacement module. We have an input for amplified and non-amplified, our vehicle harness port, the expansion port, our power port, and on the opposite side, our radio harness connector port. At the very end of our vehicle harness, we'll find a single connector. This is our radio harness connector. Plug this into our module here. Connect the 3-pin power plug. This 10-pin to 10-pin harness is the same on both ends, so plug either connector into the port labeled expansion port. Connect in the vehicle harness. And for the audio connector, plug in the port that matches your vehicle. Use the second port from the end for non-amplified vehicles. Use the end port if you have a factory amplified vehicle. This connector is for the external speaker. If we install that, we'll make that connection here when we're in the vehicle. Locate the 2 small modules included in the packaging. The Pack Link module has 2 10-pin ports on the end. Plug the free end of the 10-pin cable into either port. These yellow wires with a 3-pin connector plug into the small connector on the other end of the Pack Link. The small heat shrink wrapped module labeled RPA VA1 gets connected onto the 6-pin connector on the main harness down by the vehicle connectors. Now we can connect our RCA connectors between our harnesses. The 16-pin AV harness has these yellow RCA connectors for our camera inputs. Locate the cable labeled Reverse Camera In and connect it to the yellow RCA labeled Reverse Cam. Now locate the red and white RCA connectors labeled Aux Audio and connect these into the matching red and white RCAs labeled Aux In. The green loop connection is our parking brake connection. Ensure that the 2 wires are connected like this. The AV harness also has a 3.5mm connector for connecting the external mic. Keep an eye on this cable when reinstalling the module into the dash, as we'll need this connector later. Now we can assemble the radio module and the brackets. Line up one of the metal brackets on the side of the module so that you can see the mounting hole through the bracket. Then install 2 of the M5x10 Phillips screws. Now repeat this process on the other side of the module with the other mounting bracket.
Well, that completes our bench work. We can now take these radio assemblies and harnesses and head back into the truck.
Let's bring the storage compartment back in with the USB cables that we installed. We can set it on the floor of the truck and route the USB cables up behind the dash to the radio opening. Be sure to reinsert the orange and black harnesses back into their power outlets on the panel. Pull the USB cables up through the radio opening and align the panel into position. Then snap it into place. Now we can reinstall the 3 T15 Torx screws, securing it into the dash. Tuck the excess of the USB cables into the dash, leaving the connectors hanging out so we can make connections. We can bundle up the excess of some of these wires and secure the bundle with a zip tie to keep things tidy inside the dash. Being sure to also trim off the excess of the zip ties. We want to handle the GPS antenna excess specifically. Straighten out the cable, pull the slack into large loops. Now twist the loop around into a figure 8. Then fold the loop onto itself. Now we can secure this bundle with a few zip ties. We can hide most of this bundle inside the dash, being sure to leave out the connector so we can plug it into the back of the radio module. 2 small loop harnesses are provided. One should match the most connector inside your dash. Simply connect the most loop that plugs into your vehicle. The other loop harness will not be used. Then we can tuck this wire inside the dash. Now we can slide the radio module up to the top opening inside the dash. Slide it all the way back until the brackets sit on the sub-dash support. Then install 2 supplied Phillips screws to mount the module to the dash support. The yellow FACRA connector is for the factory Sirius XM connector. If you're installing a Sirius XM tuner, plug the small SAT02 adapter here. We're not installing a tuner, so we'll tuck this wire off to the side. The black FACRA connector is the AM/FM antenna. Attach the antenna adapter here, then plug it into the port labeled ANT, and tuck the rest of the cable to the side. Now connect the original radio connector into the end of the main harness. If your truck is equipped with green and gray connectors, they should plug right in. If your truck has brown and gray connectors instead, you'll need to connect the small adapter harness to the end of the main vehicle harness, then plug in your truck's connectors. Plug the large black connector on the harness into the power port on the back of the radio module. There's a small gray connector labeled BOSE. If your truck was equipped with BOSE amplified audio system, plug in the matching gray connector here. Plug the yellow RCA connector we ran from behind the dash into the yellow RCA labeled CAM GM15 input. Plug the AV harness into the port labeled AV. Be sure to keep track of the 3.5mm connector labeled external mic. If we want to add any additional cameras like blind spot or front view to the truck, we can connect those in here. We're not adding any cameras, so we'll tuck these wires over to the side, being sure to keep the 3.5mm microphone cable outside. Locate the 2-pin connector we ran from the speaker under the steering column, and plug it into the 2-pin connector on the end of the harness. There's a blue wire with a white stripe labeled amplifier trigger. If you're adding external amplifiers to the vehicle, this can be used to turn those on and off. The black and red wires supply accessory power for adding aftermarket cameras or lighting products. Then locate the single wire we ran from the steering column and find the single connector lead labeled SWC input and plug them together. A small square of double-sided tape is provided in the kit. Remove the backing and stick it on the bottom of the radio replacement module. Then remove the backing on the other side and adhere the module inside the dash. Then we can tuck some of the extra wiring on top of the module inside the dash. Locate the blue GPS antenna connector and plug it into the port on the upper left corner labeled GPS. These RCAs are used for adding aftermarket amplifiers. Plug this audio expansion harness into the port labeled Pre-Out. Plug the USB-A connector into either USB port. The one closest to the edge of the module, in this case the top, offers the most functionality. Connect the USB-C connection into the port labeled Phone. Here we have our data harness, which has a 4-pin connector for controlling Stinger lighting products. It also features this other white plug, which we will connect into our volume knob, so we want to keep track of this white connector. Plug this plug into the port labeled Data. Keep track of this other white connector. Now if we set the display on the passenger seat, we can take the long USB cable with the latch facing down and plug it into the port on the back of the radio module. The plastic trim panel around the display has a notch at the bottom left. Grab both the white connector for data and the 3.5mm microphone cable and pass them through the small opening below the display panel. Tuck the excess of the display cable inside the dash. As we're placing the display into place, pass the gray connector through the hole on the bottom right side. While holding the display in place, install the top 2 screws to secure it to the dash. Now we can turn the truck on and perform a quick functionality check before we reassemble the vehicle. The radio may take a while to boot up the first time we power it on. This is normal. The very first time we boot up the HORIZON12, it's going to ask us to confirm the orientation of the display. In this case, we'll select horizontal. Verify that we get AM/FM reception. Verify that audio plays through the entire vehicle. Verify steering wheel control functionality. Ensure that volume and track operate properly. Then if we start the truck, we can shift it into reverse and verify that the factory reverse camera displays on the HORIZON12. With the functionality check completed, now we can turn the vehicle off. The main frame assembly is painted, so it has a protective film on it to protect the finish. Remove the protective film by pulling it off the panel. Also remove the protective film off the 2 small insert panels from the kit. Then snap the inserts into the lower portion of the main panel. They are keyed so that each fit on their respective sides. Reinstall the lower 2 7mm bolts into the display panel. Rotate the main panel down to access the connectors on the back. Find the 4-pin data plug and plug it into this connector. Then find the 3.5mm mic connector and plug it in. Ensure it's plugged in fully. Tuck the excess cables inside the dash. Reconnect the climate control plug. We're going to want to pull on this red tab so we can remove the screen protector before we snap this panel into position. There are clips all the way around this panel to securely hold it into the dash. Press it forward while working your way around the edges to get the whole panel to sit into position. Reinstall the top glove box. Reinstall the bottom glove box. Then the Torx screws. Reinstall the grab handle. And its 2 10mm bolts. And finally, the plastic covers.
And that completes the installation of our Horizon 12 into our Chevy Silverado. We hope you've enjoyed this video and found it helpful. Be sure to visit our website for more information about this fantastic product and other upgrades for your vehicles. Also check out the feature video to see the Horizon 12 in action. Thanks for watching.